Namaste, peace, family, greetings, beloved. Tonight, we are going to be discussing ancestors. This is my second video on ancestors, and this topic is very important to me due to the fact that, recently I have lost an amazing amount of people on one side of my family over a certain amount of years. And so it's led me to truly being, able to understand the importance of ancestral contact, honoring your ancestors and things of that nature. For one, as an individual, you have these ideas for your life. And you grow up from a young child and you have these dreams and these aspirations, and life happens and you either successfully achieve those things or you pass either still continuing to try to achieve those goals, or you may have allowed those goals to kind of be put off in the back burner as you continue through life, But in many cultures, the belief of honoring ancestors, it has been able to prolong life, it's been able to sustain health, it's been able to assist in achieving and manifesting, just being able to honor ancestors from a very practical sense. I'll give, from a very practical sense, and then from a metaphysical sense of things or a spiritual sense of things. But, let's just say, for instance, I start a tire company. I start this tire company because I want my children's children to be successful. I want them to have a place in life that they have carved out specifically for them off the sweat of my back or the sweat of my brow. And I build this thing and I pass away. If my children are able to continue the business, if they're able to continue honoring the legacy of that business, then from a practical sense, wealth and all of these things are granted unto these children and the children's children. And so just from a practical sense of things, just showing you how some of that can just be in alignment. But as we talk about ancestors, a lot of people, in that illustration, a lot of people think about blood relation, but a lot of people don't think about spirit relation, right? A lot of people don't think about community relation, in reference to, for instance, I connect with Bob Marley, right? I consider him as an ancestor of mine. And why? Because we share in some of the same ideals. And so with him being successful in certain things that he's accomplished in his life, with me being an artist, with me being an activist, all of those things, I connect with his source. I connect with his spirit, and I honor his spirit in hopes or in manifestation for his help or for his guidance or for certain abilities to be manifested or to be seen or exploited. So your ancestor or the ones that you may want to communicate with, they don't necessarily have to be in direct relation to you. You could just have a connection to that spirit, all right? So a lot of people, I won't say they don't know that, but when I speak to people about ancestors, that's something that I'm making sure I communicate. And when we start to realize that, because some people feel like they just can't connect with certain blood relation of their knowledge, and it's hard or it's difficult for them to extend past the blood relation of their knowledge, right, to connect. However, they may have a friend that has passed, or a great aunt, or someone in the family, or family friend, or a community leader, something to that effect. All right. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. All right. So let's talk about some of the ways, or some of the reasons why one would communicate with an ancestor. Well, obviously, one may just be a sense of longing, or missing a loved one, right? We want to honor grandma or grandpa, we miss the great aunt, or we miss a mother or a father, or we miss, someone who may have been close to us that have passed. And so we want to honor them, or we want to stay in communication with them just because of that missing, right? That I miss you type thing. And that's fine. However, there are other ways, or there are other reasons why some people, like myself, may communicate or want to honor an ancestor. It may be to help manifest something. It may be to keep protection. It may be for advice. In a scenario, if I'm a business person and I feel as though I can't necessarily get business advice from friends or from people that I may know, I may not have the certain financial wherewithal to hire a particular consultant or whatever, but my grandfather was great in business. I may, offer up certain sacrifices, or I may, I may do certain things, perform certain rituals to honor his spirit in return for advice. Different. It could be so many different things. So let's talk about some of the ways of honoring our ancestors. All right. One of the ways of honoring your ancestors could be, dedicating a positive action in the name of an ancestor. Let's give some examples of that. Let's say if my grandmother, died from high blood pressure or from cancer, right? Starting a nonprofit in her name to help in the war on cancer, right? That may be a way of honoring an ancestor. And so when you think about how that works, think about it like this. Let's say that someone donated $10 million, right, in your name to an organization. That deed creates, or that deed does something. And though you may not have personally done it, it was done in your name, the deed gets done still, right? So if she lost the war on cancer, if she passed away from cancer, her fight to become healthy again, though she may have lost that battle, in using her name to help someone else be cured of that disease, you're honoring the ancestor, right? And so that's one way of understanding it, right? So dedicating a positive action, all right? Staying open to direct communication from your ancestors. Staying open. When you honor your ancestors, when you say to your higher spirit, when you say to your carnal spirit, hey, we're going to remain open so that anyone who may want to reach out to us may have that ability. In your ancestors knowing that they have the ability to contact you, it's I don't want to say it's a great feeling or it's a harmony, but that's what happens. A particular harmony takes place, right? Because they know that you are leaving that channel of communication open. So if at any point they need to reach you, they're able to do so. They know that in you keeping that channel of communication open, you're also open to possibly doing the work of a request that they may have, or they know that if in need, you may have to communicate to them, and the knowledge of them being able to facilitate or helping you in that particular situation, it creates a harmony. And so, once again, to bring it to a practical point, if I have a certain amount of money, let's say we're friends, right? And I'm racked up. I've got money in the bank, and I say to you, hey, listen, Mark, if you need anything, just let me know, right? And Mark starts going through life. If I see him working hard and accomplishing things, but I know that he's still open to my help, then I know he's got it. But the moment he calls upon me for help, I'm immediately jumping to his aid, because I know that he left that line of communication open, so if in need, I could easily facilitate, right? If you're making it difficult for your spirits to get through, your ancestors to get through, then it's doing you a disservice. So by keeping those channels open, it creates a harmony, because even within yourself, you know, hey, I know if anything that I'm enduring becomes too heavy, I know that my ancestors are going to help. And so just within your psyche, just within, your mind, it helps just going through the day-to-day life, right? Another way of honoring ancestors is through dream visitation. Um, when a spirit, when an ancestor wants to reach out, and we're so busy going through the day, right? We're working, we're driving, we're performing, we're producing, all of these things. It may be difficult in that day to get your attention. However, when you're asleep, that's one of the most open forms of communication that one may have, simply because you're not distracted. And so in being open to being visited while asleep, you're able to have a different form of communication. People have made mention to having dreams where, an ancestor may come and give them specific information about a certain situation that they're going through. And because they were able to see it in that dream, they awaken, and now they know exactly what to do, right? If an ancestor is having a difficult time in their realm and may need your assistance, one of the ways for them to communicate that is through dreams. You may actually be able to see and speak to that ancestor. That's how you know you're being visited. It's not like being awake, where it may just be an audible, or it may just be an unction or a feeling. A dream visitation is different because it's intimate. It's extremely intimate. That ancestor is delivering some information specifically about a certain thing. The ancestors can often reach out to the most skeptical descendants with a very well-placed, emotionally charged dream. Not all dreams of the dead necessarily involve a direct contact, but when an ancestor is actually trying to get through, it's not always easy, like I said before. However, contact through dreams are often accompanied by a felt sense of actually meeting the deceased loved one. The dreams may include receiving a message of some kind or healing around the loss of the accompanied. If the dream has the quality of contact and the deceased seems in distress, you may offer or want to offer a direct prayer, healing ritual, or positive energy toward their elevation and happiness. A lot of people pass away without finishing what they start. And so you may have some spirits that are just uneasy or anxious about whatever it is that they started being completed, or, needing your assistance for that particular thing. I don't want to make it so specific so that, those of you who are watching, you're focused on those specifics. I just want to keep some things very general so that, as you're digesting this information, you can process it as you need to. You can place this information where you need to place it, because in the spirit world, it's not always black and white. Okay, there's a lot of room for interpretation. Everyone's different. Everyone's experience is different, right? What's another way of honoring an ancestor or knowing or identifying contact is synchronicity. Synchronicity is a very big indicator that you're communicating with an ancestor. I'll give you a practical sense. Let's say that my grandmother loved daffodils, right? And I have a new neighbor who just moved in across the street, and they come across and they say, hey, I was thinking about planting these daffodils. What do you think? Knowing that your grandmother, or knowing that my grandmother loved daffodils, that could be a direct communicator that, hey, my grandmother is present, and she is in a good place, or that I'm in a good place, right? Or let's say, certain things happen a particular way each month or each week or annually, right? Without your direct control of it. It just seems to happen every way. Some people say, well, let's say my great-grandfather used to play the numbers, and he played 11-14. And every time I look at the clock for the last, 2 weeks, every time I look at it, either day or night, it's 11-14. Your grandfather or great-grandfather may be trying to communicate with you. So you may want to stop for a moment, take a minute, ask great-grandpa, hey, what is it that you're trying to communicate? Offer up a ritual, offer the ancestor a meal. Do something to honor that ancestor, because your knowledge base of their actuality, or your knowledge base of their being in that moment, it should be honored. It should be honored. And when you honor the ancestors, when you actually take time to honor them, certain things take place. Clarity takes place. Things move, mountains move, and you're making way for, or you're clearing a path for your longevity through the universe. Because through honoring those ancestors, you know that someone will be honoring you. And so it makes your work a little more worthwhile. All of the knowledge, all of the talks that I offer, it's not just so that you could be at a place of metaphysics. It's not so that you could just be at a place of this spiritual highness. But what does it actually do for you? A lot of people talk about honoring ancestors, but a lot of people don't talk about what it does for them. How does it influence life? How does it add to the joy of life? And that's how, family. Because in performing certain acts, in acknowledging certain things, you're giving way to knowledge. You're giving way to actuality. You're saying that these things didn't just vanish. These people didn't just vanish. Their life is still worth something. Their legacy is still worth something. And that worth, when you can identify worth, when you can identify worth, that starts to take an effect. It starts to infect your entire being. It starts to spread throughout you, right? And it helps to manifest. It helps to facilitate. It helps to heal. All these things because you start to understand that nothing is final. And honoring ancestors, that's truly the key, that nothing is ever final. Things are always changing. And no matter where you are in your life, with the right combination, you too can change your circumstances and your environment. It's just like if you go to the doctor and you say, hey doc, I got a headache, and he gives you these pain pills. Well, how do they know that works? Because scientists took time to put those chemicals together that were specially designed to get rid of that headache. We've been doing the same thing for thousands of years. We have been honoring the stars. We have been honoring gods. We have been honoring ancestors since the beginning of time. It's what has given light to the darkness. It is what has given spark to intelligence. So synchronicity is a huge part. Establishing a place for your ancestors is a key. It's very important to know where you're going, or where you arrive to communicate. And when I say that, I mean this. That's what, grave sites are. They're altars in a certain sense. People go to graves, they put flowers on it, they take gifts. That's a way of honoring an ancestor. It's a communication between a living and a transcendent, right? So that's a gravesite is a way, or a place, a physical place to honor an ancestor. One of the most common is an altar. Having an altar either in your home or somewhere where you can frequent. Because if we don't have a particular place to put these ancestors, then they're kind of all over you. And especially if you're open, especially if your vortex stays to a certain, wideness, it could be very difficult maneuvering through the day with all of that going on within you. And so you want to manage your energy. That's what this is really all about. It's about management. It's about manifesting. It's about management. And so you have to be able to manage this communication, because think of it from a practical sense. If you have a job and you were at work all day talking on the phone, how long do you think you'd be able to have that job? And so when we communicate to the ancestors, it's the same way. We don't want the communication to be so sporadic that we can't focus. We can't, deal with the day-to-day things of life, because that's how we can get that's where it could get a little dangerous, right? We can lose sense of reality. We can lose grounding, if we're doing nothing but communicating with the deceased. Because you also have those spirits that are not necessarily the most honorable or truthful. You have some ancestors who are about the trickery. And so you want to have a place to put your ancestors. So an altar is a great place. And when you're building this altar, a lot of people, or a rule of thumb, is to only have the deceased on your altar. Now, however Spirit has you do it, Spirit, the Creator, the Most High, whatever you may call it, however you are led to communicate, honor your way. These are just guidelines. I just give, examples so that those who may not have any idea as to how to get started, they have some sense or some clue as to how to get started with honoring ancestors, or any of the other videos that I go into, or talks that I go into. But trust yourself. Trust your Most High being. Trust your Most High voice in anything that you're doing, Spirit-led. And just explore. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. These things take time. It takes practice. Spending time with ancestors, it's just as practical as it is having a favorite aunt, or having a favorite uncle, or going to granddaddy's house and talking to him about certain things, or going to grandma's house and her cooking and things of that nature. You have to make it practical so that it can work for you. So that is pretty much my video on ancestors. Making offerings. I'm sorry, making offerings. That's a huge one. Huge one. As a matter of fact, let's say, for instance, my uncle, he may smoke cigars. He may have liked brown liquor, or my grandmother baked cakes, or she loved to plant flowers. Whatever those things may be. A great way to honor your ancestors is by doing something that they love to do and offering that up as a gift, right? So if you're making dinner or making a meal for an ancestor, one of the best ways to do that is deciding on what it is. That everything you do must be done with intent, right? So let them know, I'm preparing a meal for you on a particular day, and then honor that day, and do it with joy and love, right? And you let them know, hey, meet me at this place. If it's at the dinner table, if it's in the park, if it's wherever, invite them there. Say, I would love for you to meet me in the park and have dinner with me, or have lunch with me, right? And you may want to, after you have that particular meal, after you have that particular moment, you may want to dig up the earth and put the food in the ground, or there's so many ways. There's so many ways of offering to your ancestors. Some people may burn candles. You may set out. A drink. You may burn a cigar and leave it in the ashtray. There's so many ways of honoring your ancestors, and I truly, family, I want you to feel good about what it is that you're doing. So if it takes, trying some of these, it may not be each of these as a total that you're doing. You may be doing one or the other. You may only have contact with your ancestors through the dream world. You may only have, this is your life. This is your energy. This is your experience on the planet. However you want that experience to be, you have that option. And so, beloved, I just wanted to give you just a few notes from my heart on ancestral rituals, honoring ancestors, things of that nature, so that hopefully this can heal or help you manifest certain things in your life that you know is supposed to be. I love you. I want more for you. Magic up. Peace to man, woman, and child, and all things that walk the earth. I am your boy, 7, the Alchemist.